Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of Late Night with BDD. I'm your host, BDD, aka Brooklyn Dad. Happy Monday to everybody. I see you guys out there. Yes, I see Monique Lee, Scott Samuels, and Veronica Tello. Listen, I'm going to jump right into this because my guest tonight, you know her. She's been here before. She's fantastic. She's got a great new podcast that she's going to share details with us tonight on. And without further ado, please join me in welcoming my guest, my return guest tonight, Dr. Allison Gill. Welcome, Doctor. Glad to have you back here.
Thanks. Good to see you, BDD. How are you?
I am fantastic, and I'm thrilled that you allowed me to bring you back on the show. Wait, let me get your thing up here. There we go. Okay, so this has been. I'm just going to jump right into it. This has been a very exciting weekend for you. You did launch your brand new show. Hang on, let me get it up there. It's not this, and it's also not this. This is your existing show, the Daily Beans. Are you still doing the Daily Beans, or
every morning, every weekday morning with Dana Goldberg? Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you guys don't miss the Daily Beans either. But her new latest show is You Don't Know Jack. And I said that this has been an exciting weekend for this lovely lady right here because she rocketed up the charts, the podcast charts, passing people left and right, passing that jackass Ben Shapiro. You passed Ben Shapiro, and you are second only to Rachel Maddow. That is an amazing accomplishment. How do you feel?
It's like totally humbling. Rachel Maddow is one of my journalistic and historic perspective sort of heroes. And so to be in anywhere near her is truly like, I don't know, it's like touching the sun. It's so cool. Like I found out she followed me on Twitter a couple months ago, and it like that blew my mind. And so now to share any kind of a space with her is just super humbling.
Indeed, indeed. So congratulations on that. I also want to extend some congratulations to you for landing Andrew McCabe. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who don't know, Andrew McCabe, he's kind of famous. He's kind of a big deal. People know him. And if you didn't know, I was just pulling that from the movie Anchorman. Andrew McCabe is the former acting director of the FBI, and he was fired just a few hours short of his retirement in a very petty move by Donald Trump. But he sued and I think he got his retirement and some extra shit. So congratulations on landing Andrew. How did you manage to get Andrew McCabe as your co-host? That's really awesome.
Well, we actually became pretty good friends. Back in we had this thing called the MSW book club, the Mueller She Wrote book club, where I would take 8 or so episodes to break down a book. We've done a lot of great books, and we have the authors on to answer questions after we finish going through the book, kind of like a little book club for like political Oprah's book club. And he and his family, his wonderful wife Jill, invited me out to his book signing party in Salt Lake City. And I was able to meet them, have dinner with them. And they're just the coolest people. And we became friends. So, me and Andy and Jill talk a lot. We text each other stories back and forth as they come out. And when I got the idea just last week to do this podcast, because it just seemed like I just had to do it based on my history and the podcasts that I've done before with special counsel investigations. I mean, his name popped into my head as what a perfect fit. I mean, he's the one who basically started the Mueller investigation and worked
Mm.
on that Crossfire Hurricane investigation before Mueller was appointed and helped get Mueller appointed and tried to save that aspect of the investigation because had there not been a special counsel appointed, that whole investigation would have just been shit canned by Bill Barr. So I'm very, very honored that he was, excited to do the show with me. So it's gonna be fun and it's gonna be interesting.
Let me just say, I listened to your show last night, loved it. And I'm saying this as a guy who I'm embarrassed to admit, I don't really listen to podcasts. I don't know why. Everybody I know listen. My wife listens to podcasts. All of my friends, my sister, everybody I know listens to podcasts while they're driving, they're jogging, whatever. I don't. You are like one of maybe two podcasts I've ever listened to, and it's fantastic. You've got a great intro, first of all, excellent intro. Um, the excellent co-host, your guest. I'm sorry, I forgot the name of your guest.
Investigation politics reporter at The Guardian, Hugo Lowell.
Yes, 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 yes. Hugo Lowell. And then you do a few bits during the show. There was this one, I'm not going to spoil it, but it was about Celine Dion that made me fall out of my chair laughing. That shit was funny because it was just random. Guys, you got to listen to this show. It's You Don't Know Jack. But before you guys get onto that, can you describe for our audience what the purpose, what do you intend to what's the goal of You Don't Know Jack?
Well, it's the same goal, as I had with Mueller, She Wrote, and that is to document in real time for historical purposes what is going on with the now special counsel investigations into Donald Trump. We know that and we talk about, Andrew and I talk about all the differences between the Mueller investigation and the Jack Smith investigation, on this first episode that came out Sunday, this past Sunday. Of You Don't Know Jack. And there are a lot of differences. And one of the main things that makes this one different is the reason Mueller didn't indict Trump was because there's an Office of Legal Counsel memo saying you can't indict a sitting president. And he knew from the very beginning when he walked into his office that he wasn't going to indict Trump. And that is no longer a problem because he's no longer a sitting president.
Right.
So that, I mean, and there's a lot of other differences, but that's the main one. And I think it's important to note that Andy, I asked Andy at the end of the show whether or not he thinks that Donald could be indicted on any of the crimes that he's being investigated for. And I think I sent you a clip about that, but it's truly an historical event, and I felt that way during the Mueller investigation. And I thought this needs to be documented as it happens. There needs to be one place people can go to get all of their special counsel news. And we are the one podcast that is that. And so that's why I wanted to do that. And I also wanted to make it interesting. A lot of this legalese can be a snooze fest. It can be hard to understand. It can be boring. People can tune out. And
Mhm.
I really think it's important that we have more people engaged in understanding what's going on and probably what's the most consequential criminal investigation in the history of the country and a former president. And I think it's important that people be able to stay engaged. And so that was the other goal, is to make it digestible and palatable. And memorable so that it arms you with the tools you need to talk to Uncle Frank at Christmas about
Yes,
what's
right.
going
No,
on.
I can confirm that it was indeed engaging. I was riveted from beginning to end. And I do actually have a clip here. If you don't mind, I'll play this now and see you on the other side.
Strictly over the Mar-Lago issue. I think that's coming up pretty soon. And quite frankly, I can't. It's hard for me to imagine a scenario in which he does not get indicted. Just based on the information that we know, there's probably much more that we don't know that the government also has. And it holds echoes of the 11th Circuit's decision, right? Are we going to treat this person so much differently than we would any other person simply because he was president? I think the answer to that has to be no. And I'll tell you, from having investigated mishandling cases and all kinds of different espionage matters, if you were a former government employee or a government officer on these facts, you're getting indicted strictly over the Mar-a-Lago issue. I think that's coming up pretty soon. And quite frankly, I can't, it's hard for me to imagine a scenario in which he does not get indicted. Just based on the information that we know, there's probably much more that we don't know that the government also has. And it holds echoes of the 11th Circuit's.
Yeah, I was repeating. But it's okay. It's so fun to hear Andrew say, I don't see him not getting indicted. So
thank you. Thanks for that. What do you have to add to what he just said about Trump getting indicted?
Well, I think one of the key parts there is he mentions something that the 11th Circuit brought up, because this is, we had a hearing, oral arguments in front of the 11th Circuit because the DOJ wanted to overturn Judge Cannon's order appointing a special master, which is Judge Raymond Dearie. Yeah, she got bench slapped. I mean, holy bench slap, Batman.
Yeah.
But in that decision, they purposefully point out, and they did in the oral arguments as well, you can't treat this any differently. We can't carve out an extraordinary exception for equitable jurisdiction because he was the president one time. We're not going to do that, because there are constitutional issues at the core of that. And Andrew and I talk about those, and that's the separation of powers. The judiciary, the court, the 11th Circuit, and these are two Trump appointees, say, dude, we cannot interfere in an executive branch criminal investigation. The judiciary cannot do that. If we carve out that exception, that means anyone who has a search warrant executed on their home can file a pre-indictment Rule 43, Rule 43, I think, 343G, civil proceeding to get their stuff back. And we have to grant them jurisdiction and a special master to review their things. No, we aren't. There's no way. And we can't treat him differently because he's the president. And I think that sort of provides some political, it relieves some political pressure from the Department of Justice. If they indict, they say, hey, these Trump appointed judges said we can't treat him any differently. So we can't treat him any differently. And the special counsel also gives them that political insulation that they need. So that's why Andrew answered that question the way that he did.
So I have to say, I myself was not a big fan of Merrick Garland's announcement that he was appointing a special counsel. Like, my knee-jerk reaction was, oh no, it's going to be another delay. It's never going to happen. And then, I was really just beside myself, because I feel like Charlie Brown with the football always getting snatched away by Lucy, And then I checked in to your feed, right? Because I knew that you had kind of, like, more than anybody else, you had been involved in, tracking that whole Mueller thing. And the Mueller report was kind of what, made me a little gun shy about this whole thing with the special counsel. But, you had the exact opposite reaction, and you were not alone in your enthusiasm about Jack Smith. Before we knew it, people were creating memes all over the place, and they were really, shared your enthusiasm about Jack Smith. So I am encouraged that you are convinced, but why are you so convinced that Jack Smith is precisely the guy for this moment?
Yeah, and this is where I want to really emphasize that my opinions don't just come out of nowhere. They're based on the opinions of experts who have worked with Jack Smith, who know Jack Smith, experts who understand the special counsel rules and regulations, and For example, back in October of 2021, over a year ago, I put out a thread as to why I thought a special counsel would be a good idea for Garland to appoint. And there's several reasons, but the main reason I wanted it to happen was because of the transparency aspect. See, if the DOJ, if it's just Merrick Garland, and let's say he decides he's not going to prosecute Trump, he doesn't have to tell us that. He doesn't have to tell us why he's declined to prosecute Trump. He can just have an Office of Legal Counsel memo whipped up, hide it away from the public, and keep it away from FOIA requests by saying it's part of a deliberative process privilege and will never see the light of day, and then just move on with everything. And none of us know what has ever happened. If
Right.
Garland were truly here to protect Trump and get him off the hook, that's what he would have done. That's the way that you do it. But with a special counsel, if he declines to prosecute his charge, he has to put it in a report and say why he declined to prosecute, just like Mueller, just like my buddy Mueller had to. He had to put in writing why he didn't charge Donald Trump. And, you know, a lot of people disagreed with the Office of Legal Counsel. No, same with me. I wish he would have done it and they could have litigated it, because I don't think it's ever been litigated. But that's more important to me. The transparency is important to me. Also, the speed here's another thing. If you're not a Merrick Garland fan, and let's say Jack Smith decides to go forward with indictments against Donald Trump, and Merrick Garland says, no, I'm not going to allow it, that can't be done in secret either. Anything that the Merrick Garland changes or disagrees with or modifies in any way has to be reported to Congress, which means the public. So that transparency is important. The speed is important. And there's a few differences, and we go over all those differences in the podcast, particularly with why, he doesn't have to build a whole team in office from scratch or anything like that. He's just kind of sitting atop an infrastructure that already exists. And the DC U.S. attorney right now is prosecuting 1,000 cases, with the boots on the ground January 6th attacks, and is doing every other murder that's happened in DC, and like every federal criminal crime that's happened in DC that they contend with there. And so this is now Jack Smith. This is all he does. That's all he does is investigate these Trump crimes. And there's three of them. There's the documents case. There's the January 6th disruption of the peaceful transfer of power investigation, and there's obstruction of justice investigation. And since Jack Smith was appointed, they have now impaneled 3 new grand juries. And I don't know if it's because some grand juries expired or if they're his new grand juries or what, but we've had significant movement and nothing has stopped. None of the scheduling has changed. None of the due dates on any of the court cases or subpoenas or testimony has changed. It's just going forward the way that it was and the way that it has been. But now we've got somebody at the tip top of it that seems a lot less timid than Merrick Garland, tends to prosecute cases based on the law and the facts, not based on whether or not he'll win. He's the one who tried to prosecute John Edwards. He lost that case, but he didn't shy away from it because he could lose. He felt the law and the facts dictated that he bring that case. And in this, particularly the Mar-a-Lago case, I think that's the way that he'll go too. He's not timid. He's more likely to prosecute a case. He's not somebody who will let politics or feelings or the zeitgeist dictate any sort of prosecutorial discretion that's ambiguous. He will go by the law and the facts.
Can Jack Smith be defunded?
That's a really good question. That's a myth we talk about in the You Don't Know Jack podcast. And I confirmed this with Andy McCabe, and it's something that I learned during the Mueller investigation. Special counsel is not funded by Congress. They are funded out of a permanent fund in the Department of Treasury, which is controlled by Merrick Garland.
So okay, that's good. It's good to know.
You'd have to pass legislation specifically to change that rule to defund him specifically, which means you would need to get 60 votes in the Senate, and which means you would have to have it signed by President Biden.
And that ain't happening. Mm-mm. When is the earliest, in your opinion, you think we could see an actual indictment handed down?
For Donald Trump specifically?
Yeah.
It depends on how complex the documents case is. If it's as simple as we subpoenaed you, you didn't give us all the documents, that's obstruction of justice, you stole the stuff, it's classified, that's espionage. You concealed that from us, that's concealment 2071. If it's as simple as that, and there isn't some crazy tendril threaded thing about who he shared documents with or where the rest of them are, I think it could be by the end of the year, by the end of this month. But
Oh, what?
because remember the 11th Circuit just ordered Special Master Judge Deary to hand back all the documents to the Department of Justice so they can now use them in their criminal investigation. And you need those to indict him on anything, because you need all the evidence before you can indict somebody, because that's, constitutional rights for criminal defendants, which we should support as Democrats. But that would be the earliest. I think probably January, February is a safer bet. And for the January 6th stuff, April would be very fast. If we, since the beginning, since mid 2021, I have said if we follow the Watergate timeline, indictments would start coming in April of 2023. And if they do, that would be fast, because Watergate, as they say, is a parking ticket compared to the January 6th investigation. So, well, that's sort of my timeline, but you also don't want to wait too long into 2023 to indict, because it could take a year to get through trial. And right then you're sitting on top of the 2024 presidential election.
Allison, we have the trolls constantly razzing us like, we got him now. We got him.
And I feel that. But they had listened to the Mueller, She Wrote podcast way back in 2018. We're like, he's not going to indict Donald Trump. We were doing the fantasy indictment league for guys like Roger Stone and Manafort and Rick Gates and Vanderswan. And I did really good. My fantasy indictment draft did really good. He indicted 34 people and entities, 100% conviction rate or guilty plea rate, except for the Russians who we couldn't get extradited. And it was a very robust investigation. It made over $90 million in asset forfeiture. It paid for itself twice over. It was a very successful investigation. We just weren't allowed to indict a sitting president. So I was very adamant about people not getting too excited about that. And these things take so long. They just take so long. I think people don't know that. They want it done fast, and there's just no such thing as a investigation this complex being done in less than 2 years. That's just not possible.
Can you give us a preview of some other guests you either plan to have on the show or that you would like to have on the show?
Well, I can assure you that Andrew Weissman will probably be joining us at some point. Absolute brilliant legal mind, and of course, lead prosecutor on Team Manafort over at the Mueller investigation. I can assure you that, well, I haven't asked him yet, but if he says no, I'll be really angry. Pete Strzok, my good friend Pete Strzok, will probably be joining us.
Nice, yeah.
Well, I imagine we'll have Hugo Bull on a lot, because it's his beat now, covering the special counsel. It's about covering political investigations I think it's political investigations of Trump at the Department of Justice, which is special counsel investigations. I imagine we'll have him on a lot, getting a lot of scoops from him. I recommend everybody follow Hugo for the latest and greatest there. I would love to have some of my former U.S. attorney friends on to answer legal questions, like Barb McQuaid or Joyce Vance. I'd love to see if I can get Neil Katyal to come back on the show. He is the former Solicitor General who wrote the special counsel regulations. He would be a fantastic guest, and he was pretty adamantly against appointing a special counsel. And so it's always good to have that other input. I imagine Ellie Honig, my good friend, former federal prosecutor. I'd like to have some of my friends who are Capitol Police officers on, because my friend Harry Dunn just tweeted out tonight, like, look, my two things I wanted were for the nation to get justice, and for my brothers and sisters in Capitol Police and law enforcement that were there that day to get justice. And part of getting that justice is what the special counsel is investigating. And I would love to have Harry on, who's being honored with a congressional gold medal in a ceremony tomorrow,
Nice.
along with Hodges and Ganell and Fanone and all of our good friends in the Capitol Police and in the Metropolitan Police Department, former and current. So I'd like to get his view on justice. Like, if an indictment comes down, I want to know, does it feel, like the sting, like,
Mhm.
Don't, it's not good enough, but it's close, like I'm really interested to see how he feels when that kind of accountability comes. So those are some of the guests I'm looking at probably having on.
That's a fantastic list. I hope you get each and every single last one of those people on your show. I'm looking forward to it. Your show, there's a new episode every Sunday, right?
Yeah,
Is it
yeah, for
Sunday?
the special counsel podcast every
Yeah.
Sunday.
Now, I'd like to shift gears a little bit, although it's really not shifting gears because it all pretty much has to do with this jackass here. Trump has been a little bit more Trumpy, I guess, over the past few weeks, and I'm sure that Jack Smith being appointed as the special counsel might have something to do with it. Um, he seems a lot more desperate to me. I don't know. What do you think?
He does. And there could be, I asked this question on Twitter. There's something that the DOJ sends out. It's called a target letter. And, during the Mueller investigation, if somebody was having a real bad day, like if Roger Stone was just, there you go, you are so good. Like if Roger Stone was just spouting off or whatever, I was like, oh, somebody got a target letter. And it's basically a letter the Department of Justice sends you saying you are under federal criminal investigation for these crimes. You might want to lawyer up. It's like a courtesy. Like,
Yeah.
we're coming to get you. We're coming to get you. Spitting out lyrics, homie, I'll wet you. Sorry, went on Ari Melber there for a minute.
Yeah.
I came to get down.
He loves his hip hop.
To get out your seat and jump around. That's showing my age. Okay, Grandma, go back to the home. Okay. But I think maybe he got something like that. But he knows that he's not calling for the termination of the Constitution to be installed as dictator because he loves being president. There it is. You are so on it, my friend. Everybody, Brooklyn Dad, on it.
Thank you.
He's not doing that because he loves being president. He hated being president. I don't even think he realized he won. I don't think he wanted to win. I think it was just the grift. In 2016, he wants to be president so he can hold on to that Office of Legal Counsel memo that says you can't indict a sitting president for dear life. That's why he's doing it. He's running for president to make it politically more difficult to charge him. So anyway, I think, that's why he's going on these tears. Either he got a target letter or he just knows that the walls are closing in.
Yeah.
And I rarely say that. I don't say it because that's one of those Lucy football phrases, right? The walls are closing in. We're going to get him this time. I have never, ever, ever predicted or thought that Donald Trump was going to be indicted until after we learned that the Department of Justice had Will Nauta on video moving documents, and we knew that he told the Department of Justice that Donald Trump told him to move them. It wasn't until that. And I look back at that 3-week gap, that 3 weeks that it took Merrick Garland to sign off on the search warrant. And I realized Merrick Garland wasn't deciding whether or not to sign off on the search warrant. He was deciding whether or not he'd be willing to prosecute if the search provided fruits of a crime. And that's what I think because he knew if he signs off on that search warrant and he gets all this crime evidence, this crime stuff, he's got to prosecute. It's just the law. So that's the decision he was making. And it wasn't until then that I said, I predict we will gain 3 Senate seats, 2 House seats. And I predict he will be indicted for those 3 crimes, 1519, 2071, and 793, espionage, concealment of documents, and obstruction. And that's the first time I've ever boldly predicted he would be indicted. And I was a little off on the midterm prediction, but a lot closer than the red wave suckers were.
Well, from your lips to God's ears, and I'm sure the rest of our audience can agree with me on that. There now, I don't know if
And
you,
again, I don't make these opinions up out of thin air. You heard Andrew McCabe,
yeah,
experts, right? I get this information from experts. I have a PhD. When I put together my dissertation, there's not one original thought in that whole thing. It has to be other people's work and how that tests my theory and what the conclusions are. And so I hope people understand that this isn't like a hope demon monkey wrangler like total optimistic thing that I'm coming up with. This is based on knowledge from experts outside of myself that do this for a living.
now he came out earlier tonight and now is denying that he had anything that he said anything about terminating. The fake news is actually trying to convince the American people that I want to terminate the Constitution. This is simply more disinformation and lies. Um, he
He puts
it
terminate in quotes like he didn't say it.
he's just throwing punctuation and caps wherever he wants them. It's to me it reeks of desperation. It's either desperation or distraction. I can never figure out which way he's going with these random missives that he throws out there and lets people react to. We've been reacting to him for 5 or 6 years. That's it.
Well, here's the other thing. I think the reason he's trying to walk that back is because him coming out and saying he wants to terminate the Constitution to allow himself to be president again. And again, this isn't my opinion. I'm getting this from Joyce Vance, and I think Asha Rangappa retweeted it. I think some of the Sisters-in-Law podcasts folks were talking about it. Joel Weinbanks and that whole crew of amazing women. That when you say I want to terminate the Constitution so that I can install myself as president, you're admitting that you know it's against the Constitution, aka illegal, to do what you're trying to do,
Yeah.
which when he's being investigated by Jack Smith for, you know, obstructing an official proceeding and pressuring Mike Pence and setting up fraudulent slates of electors, that Truth Social thing, the truth, I guess, that he put out shows that he knows that what he was doing is illegal. And that goes right to intent. That's a harder case to prove than the documents case. But that's why he's walking that back. One of his attorneys is like, oh, God, Christ, will you stop? You're no wonder Chris Kise was like 3 million up front, or I'm not doing this. He's got to just be pulling his hair out saying, man, you got to walk that back. Oh God, like it's got to be so. Rudy Giuliani had his disbarment, hearings today. Like Sidney
What was
Powell
the
was under
outcome of
federal
that?
criminal investigation. She was sanctioned. Carrie Lake and Dallin Dershowitz, Rule 11 sanctions in Arizona. Alina Habba was sanctioned for Donald Trump's stupid lawsuit against Hillary Clinton and probably will be sanctioned for the one he filed against Tish James. It has to just you're going to lose your law license and maybe be disbarred if you're a Trump lawyer. So that's probably why he walked that back. His lawyers were like, dude.
You posted something very interesting earlier today about his terminate the Constitution statement. I just want to put it up here. By calling for the termination of the Constitution, are Republicans trying to get Democrats to say the Constitution is immutable so that they can use that against us when we want to amend it? Feels like reflexive control. Where did you land on this? Are you just musing aloud, or are you leaning towards they're trying to goad us into an aha moment? Aha!
Well, this has happened a few times before, right? We saw this happen. Reflexive control is a term I learned from Asha Rangappa. It's a Russian active measure. It gets you to say the thing that they want you to say. But you're saying it for the right reason, but they can point you out for the wrong reason. For example, believe all women, hashtag believe all women was started by the right wing so they could queue up Tara Reade. So that we would say Tara Reade's accusation is bogus, and they would say, believe all women. You said believe all women. Another one was election interference in 2016. the Russians interfered in our election.
I knew it. I knew it.
And we had voting machine problems with ESS, something like that.
Yeah.
Jennifer Cohn did all sorts of segments on this, and how does Mitch McConnell keep winning Kentucky when he has a negative 82% approval rating? And then they come out and we have a free and fair election, and they call it rigged, and we go, it's not rigged. And they go, oh, but you thought 2016 there was problems with, you were an election denier then. That's sort of that. They make us say these things so that they can do it and then turn around and say, that's what I was worried about with that particular Constitution termination thing. Because we are always like, the Constitution needs to be fixed. It has to be amended. It has to be, so we can be a diverse, multicultural democracy.
It should be a living, breathing document.
Yeah, and people like Mike Lee, an originalist, are like, no, it's sacrosanct. We have to preserve the Constitution, not fix the Constitution. And so
there's a difference between terminating the Constitution and amending it. It's a huge difference, right?
Of course it is. But if we sit there and say, no, you cannot touch the Constitution, it is sacrosanct, you can't terminate the Constitution. If we start doing that language, like preserve the Constitution or whatever, then when we want to amend it, they'll go, oh, you said don't touch it.
Right.
I mean, it's dumb, and they're going to do that to us all the time, but it helps with their messaging. It helps convince their frothy base. It's red meat for their base. So they have this new thing to believe and point to us and feel like we're wrong. It feeds into that whole thing. It's a cult mindset. And I mean, I'm not saying don't tell Trump not that, terminating the Constitution is stupid, but just, don't come out with a hashtag like Constitution should stay the same or something, let's not go there.
I think the right wing, they like to twist things like the Constitution and like the First Amendment, for instance, to fit their own needs. And let's talk a little bit about what happened in the past 3, 4, 5 days with Elon Musk and the Twitter files. Wait, I wish I had a dun, dun, dun. Oh, I do. Hang on. Yeah, the Twitter files. So this was meant to be a big expose. It was going to be a big reveal that showed like the utter depths of corruption and the heights of censorship involving big tech and the First Amendment, and how the government is getting big tech to silence voices. And, at the end of the day, well, first of all, he was supposed to kick this thing off at 5 p.m. It ended up not being dropped until 2 hours later. And to me, it really felt like, dude, why are you rushing this? Like, did somebody say you have to drop it by Friday? I mean, if you don't have your shit together, do you have Matt Taibbi in the next room? Like, yo, hurry up, man. We're waiting. Like, so there was that, right? There was a major delay. And then Matt Taibbi dropped all these tweets in a really broken thread. I mean, I was looking for number 8 and number 6, and it was all disjointed. And here, he spent the first 7 or 8 tweets basically dramatizing it up. The Twitter files tell an incredible story from inside one of the world's largest and most influential social media platforms. It is a Frankensteinian tale of a human-built mechanism grown out of the control of its designer. And then basically both Elon Musk and Matt Taibbi kind of took their own argument down by Elon Musk saying that acting under orders from the government to suppress free speech with no judicial review, blah, 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 blah. Like, Joe Biden was not in the government at the time that this thing happened. And also according to Matt Taibbi, request from both the Trump White House and the Biden campaign were received and honored. So it's like
Mhm.
only one of those two people was actually in the government and in a position to suppress free speech. So it was, at the end of the day, it was a big nothing burger, and it just kind of boiled down to the right wing wanted to see Hunter's dick pics. I mean,
That's exactly what it is. I mean, this is worse. This is dumber than the Durham report, right? And I'd be surprised if anyone even remembers what that is because it was so nothing.
yeah,
The investigation into Hunter Biden that's been going on for 4 years at the Department of Justice. They've got nothing. They're thinking maybe they had some gun charges, maybe some tax charges, but they don't have. We still haven't seen any indictments. When they tried to
right,
go after McCabe, and the grand jury's like, we're not indicting. There's no crime here. Um, these are obvious, political hit jobs, which is what they accuse us of doing. But I mean, this is super basic. At first, I thought, okay, they are going to show us something like what happened at Facebook, where Facebook would put out that stupid New York Post article about the Hunter Biden Mac store chain of it was just the dumbest story. And the
mhm,
reason they weren't going to is because he told Joe Rogan, he was like, well, it was under investigation. The FBI at the time was possibly Russian disinformation funded by Firtash, who was a Russian-backed Ukrainian, worked on by Rudy and Fraud Guarantee and his whole group of, Tone Singh and DeGeneva lawyers.
yeah,
And Shokin, was that his name? And Victor Shokin and all these other shadow campaign guys who are anti-Ukrainian, pro-Russian dudes. And so that's why Facebook is like, well, we're not going to share that. It looks like it could be Russian disinformation. I thought that was going to be what this is, but if you look at those links, like you said, it's just nude photos
yeah,
of Hunter Biden.
mhm,
And really all these emails are they look like, when we go and report a tweet, like if I see a naked tweet of a animal sex or something weird, I
yeah,
hit the report thing. I put in what's wrong, how it violates the terms of service, who it's offending, and I hit that and I block the person.
yeah,
These are just tweets that were put out by Guo Wei, who's the guy who's, Bannon was arrested on that guy's yacht. That guy's in a lot of criminal trouble. And Steve Bannon's Twitter account putting out naked photos and people saying, hey, whether it's people from the Biden campaign or people from Congress or other important people, just emailing their direct contacts at Twitter to put
mhm,
in a TOS, you know, a terms of service violation
yeah,
report, because taking nude photos down off of Twitter is not, first of all, not a First Amendment violation.
right,
And second of all, if Trump called and said, take down these naked photos of Melania, I'm cool with that.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
who cares? But that could run afoul of First Amendment violations because he was part of the government. The Biden campaign was not. This is nothing. It's ridiculous. It's
it,
not.
it sounds like they're angry, and it sounds like they're angry that their dirty trick basically was not bought into by the media and and social media platforms. Basically, am I missing something?
People were like, somebody tweeted like, why is the mainstream media not covering this story? And I'm like, you're so close to getting it. You're so close. Think that all the way through. Continue your thought to its logical conclusion. Why isn't Washington Post? Why isn't anybody except Elon Musk and the New York Post doing this story?
Yeah,
Because it's got no credibility.
I've
It's got
seen
no
I've seen
journalistic value.
yeah, I've seen so many um like doctored, photoshopped, cropped, edited things from their side that automatically when you throw like what's that guy Project Veritas, all the shit they come out with is Project Veritas level crap,
Mhm.
scam, bullshit. What's the other guy, potato the corn, Jacob Wall,
Mm.
scamsters. They're all scamsters and fraudsters what do you expect, guys? You cried wolf like a bazillion times, and maybe the one time that you really, really want us to believe you, we're not going to, because first of all, you're sending us, you're giving us photographs from possibly possibly those are from his laptop, or possibly some of those are the chain of
Custody.
thank you, chain of custody is all destroyed,
It's already been
basically.
shown that a lot of those emails were hacked and added to the laptop. It's not a very good piece of evidence. If it were a strong piece of evidence, there would have been an indictment. And I'm going to say this: if Hunter Biden broke the law, indict him.
Yeah.
If he factually and criminally ran afoul of the law, indict him. I am all for that. Please be my guest. I have seen no evidence that shows that he's done anything wrong. If they get him on a gun charge, good, indict him on a gun charge for having illegal firearms or whatever.
Mhm.
But given how your Durham thing turned out, and given how your Benghazi thing turned out, and given how, I mean, Durham got 0 convictions after out of a 3-year investigation. I don't believe you. We're the ones over here like Lucy in the football, and they're like, yeah, no, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. People make fun of us for that. They've got nothing. The only thing they have is a guy named Kleinsmith who altered an email, who pled guilty and spent 0 days in jail and kept his law license. And that wasn't even Durham. That was the Inspector General of the Department of Justice that found that. So, like, which is in the government, which is part of the deep state. So, like, guys, seriously, take your BS investigation somewhere else. And I think somebody put up a thing that said it's not the naked pictures, it's the corruption of his father that's on the laptop. There's nothing of that ilk in any of the Twitter files. If you show me some kind of corruption.
What was that? The whole thing about 10% for the big guy, right? That's their big smoking gun. 10% for the big guy. Is it Tony Bobolinsky? I think. I hate that I know that many details about this bullshit.
Explain to me that, because I didn't even see that. What is the 10% for the big guy?
Okay, apparently Hunter Biden, in a drug-fueled frenzy, I believe he might have been bragging, a little bit of braggadocio, and trying to show like he's got influence in the administration or something. And I'm not sure if he said that or if somebody else said 10% for the big guy, and Joe Biden is supposed to be the big guy, and he's
How do we
supposed
know
to
that? How do we know it's not somebody on the board of Burisma or his dealer? How do we know it's not the guy who brings the dancing girls to the house? Like, I mean, show me the money, dudes. Show me the money. Indict him if he committed a crime and he is convicted and it's sustained on appeal. He's a criminal and he deserves to have punishment. That's the difference between us and them. I don't care if the criminal is a Democrat.
Yeah,
I don't.
That is the difference. That is the big difference between
You show me
us.
the bank transaction where some money was funneled from Russia over into Joe Biden's bank account, like we have seen bank transactions on the Trump side and have had multiple convictions of that specific thing happening.
Mm-hmm.
Bring it, please, by all means.
I think if they had something, we would have seen it by now. He had 4 or 5 years to get this shit together. He sent Rudy Giuliani halfway across the planet looking for dirt.
That's when he met with Firtash in Vienna.
If they didn't find it by now, maybe it's not there.
And like I said, if it's there, root out the corruption, man.
Or the deep state has buried it so deep.
The guy investigating Hunter Biden was put in charge of that investigation in 2018. Do you know who was president in 2018?
I believe it was Spanky
Obama.
McDonald's.
It's all Obama's fault.
No, wait. Obama was president during 9/11.
And Katrina, remember?
That's right. That's right. Absolutely right. Um, AG, I want to throw your information up here. This is the best way to find Dr. Allison Gill, either on Twitter or on Post. Any other social media? Is Instagram too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Also on Instagram. It's such a great thing when you have just the one handle for all of the different.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was what's great about the name Mueller, she wrote. Nobody was
it's
using
unique.
that.
It's unique, and it's a play off of Murder, she wrote, and it's the Bob Mueller report. It's so brilliant. um, Again, our guest tonight, Allison Gill. She's got a fantastic new podcast that you have to tune in every Sunday to check out. It's available on Apple. It's Apple Podcasts.
It's available everywhere.
Oh, okay.
Wherever you get
Spotify.
your podcast. On Google Podcasts right now, though, because we launched it on a weekend and we didn't really tell anybody it was coming. It was very last minute. On Google Podcast app, you have to search for Mueller, she wrote. And you'll see the Mueller, she wrote art. Because we put this, we just usurped the old Mueller, she wrote feed. We just put new art and a new title on it. But Google Podcast hasn't refreshed their thing yet, so it's still under Mueller, she wrote. You can see the episode one there. It's called The Scope.
Okay, so don't type in "you know Jack" in Google. Type in, type in Mueller, she wrote.
Mm-hmm.
Good to know. Holy shit! That's my phone. Shh, quiet. This is live, ladies and gentlemen. And Doc, hang on for me. Wait for me on the others, and I'll see you after I sign off there.
All right.
Thank you again for joining us tonight.
Thanks.
And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me for another fun episode of Storytime with BDD. I'm your host, BDD, aka Brooklyn Dad. And if you have not yet gotten your shot, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and get that shot. Also, wear a mask. We're still dealing with, still got the COVID out there. Keep your social distance 6 feet or better, and have a lovely, relaxing evening. I look forward to seeing you guys at the next show, which will be later on in the week. I'll keep you posted. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I love you all. Peace. Here's a reminder, helpful reminder to everyone. Tomorrow, Georgia, remember to vote for Raphael Warnock. Bernadette H. says, great interview with Dr. Allison Gill. Sherry Scary from KC, Missouri, home of the Kansas City Chiefs. Doc, you have a lot of fans out here. Here's a dissenter here. It says Democrats have shown they are okay with some breaking the law. I present you the former governor of Illinois, Rod Blagojevich, but we weren't okay with that at all. We were most certainly were not. Nope. Here's Veronica Tello putting you in your place here. She says they sent Al Franken out for less. The Democrats would be after Biden. Absolutely. Claudia here thinks that maybe the big guy maybe the big guy is the pet name for his dick. This is live, guys. And we're continuing with the Dick. She says they only care about Hunter's Dick because they have no plans on how to deal with inflation and crime. And folks, I'm going to leave it at that. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. You need to leave.